AITA for divorcing my wife after she defended the cheater who ruined my late best friend? I lost my best friend 2 months ago. His name was Brandon. He was 33 years old, and we had been friends since we were 6 years old. That is 27 years of history. Can you imagine? We met on the first day of first grade when he asked to borrow my red pencil. After that, we were together almost every day. Brandon was there when my parents got divorced. When I was 12, the fighting at home had been getting worse for months. My dad left one afternoon, and I watched him load up his car from my bedroom window. An hour later, Brandon showed up at my house with his basketball. We just went to the local park and played until dark. He did that every day for weeks until I started talking normally again. I was there for him when his little brother died in a car accident when we were 17. His brother was only 14. Brandon did not go to school for 3 weeks after the funeral. I would skip my last 2 classes to go sit in his room. Sometimes we played video games, but most of the time, we just sat there. His mom would bring us sandwiches and pat me on the shoulder as she left the room. When I decided to drop out of college after my freshman year to pursue something else, everyone told me I was making a mistake. My mom cried, and my dad stopped talking to me for 6 months. Brandon was the only person who said it was a good idea. He helped me chase my dream and co-signed the bank loan that allowed me to launch my small business when I was ready to take the next step. Brandon met his wife, Rachel, 31, during his junior year of college. I knew she was different the first time he introduced her to me. He had dated other girls before, but he never looked at them the way he looked at her. They got married 2 years after graduating, and I was his best man. Rachel cried during her vows, and Brandon did too. By the end, half the guests were crying. In fact, I met my wife at that wedding. She was one of Rachel's cousins. We started dating 3 months later and got married after 3.5 years together. The 4 of us became very close after our wedding. We would have dinner at each other's houses twice a month. We went camping together every summer. We spent Thanksgiving with Brandon and Rachel and Christmas with my family. When my wife and I bought our house in the suburbs, Brandon helped me install the kitchen cabinets. When Rachel started her business, my wife helped her set up her website and bookkeeping. At this point, you might be thinking, but Poster, everything seems to have gone so well for you. If that were the case, I would not be writing this and would just be enjoying my life. But everything changed 5 months ago. I woke up at 3 in the morning to my phone vibrating on the nightstand. I had a missed call from Brandon. It was from after midnight. I called him back immediately. He answered on the first ring and asked me to come over. He did not explain why, but his voice did not sound right. And when your best friend calls you in the middle of the night, it means he needs you. I got dressed and drove over to his house in my truck. Brandon was sitting on the front porch steps when I arrived, and Rachel's car was not in the driveway. That night, Brandon told me everything. Rachel had been unfaithful to him for most of their relationship. She told him she was attracted to women and had known since high school. Her family was very religious, and she never felt she could come out. She thought marrying Brandon would fix the problem, but we can see how that turned out. She had been involved in relationships with other women throughout their entire marriage. She told Brandon every lie imaginable, like taking classes here and there. In reality, she was seeing other women, going to hotels or their places, building actual relationships with people Brandon had no idea existed. Brandon found out because one of her partners showed up at his house. Apparently, Rachel had ended things with her a few days earlier. This woman was angry and decided Brandon deserved to know the truth. The other partners knew Rachel was married, but this one wanted revenge. She told Brandon everything. Rachel first denied knowing her, then ended up confessing everything. Brandon was destroyed, but he did not cry while telling me this. He just stared into the street with an empty voice. When he finished, I asked him what he needed. As we had always done for each other, we just sat on his steps until the sun came up. I did not know where his wife was, but I was afraid to ask, so I did not. After that, Rachel tried to apologize. I think she realized her mistake, that if Brandon ended the marriage, her parents would eventually find out. She texted him every day, called his mom, and even showed up at his work twice before his boss told her to stop. She said she loved him and wanted to fix things. She offered to cut off all contact with the women she had been involved with, move to another city, and go to therapy. Brandon did not respond to any of it. He moved into the guest room at his parents' house and filed for divorce. I saw Brandon 3 or 4 times a week after that. He lost weight, stopped shaving regularly, and would forget to eat if no one reminded him. His mom said he was not sleeping. I would take him to the local gym with me. We would lift weights and talk about Rachel. Sometimes it seemed to help. 3 months after Rachel's confession, Brandon was in a car accident and passed away. He had gone out for a walk at 11 at night, which was not unusual for him at that time when he could not sleep. The driver ran a red light at high speed and had alcohol in his system. Brandon was taken to the hospital but passed away on the operating table while they were trying to save him. Brandon's mom came to my house at 2 in the morning to tell me. My wife opened the door. I heard her talking to his mom, but could not really understand what she was saying. I walked over, and there was this woman, who was like a second mother to me, crying inconsolably. The funeral was a few days later, and I can tell you it affected me deeply. Brandon's mom was not doing any better. She could barely stand. His dad was handling it a bit better, but only because he did not want to make his wife's condition worse. These people had lost 2 children, and I had lost my best friend. It was a disaster. Rachel came to the funeral, but as soon as Brandon's mom saw her, she was asked to leave. It was the only moment I saw his mom regain some control. I think she used every last bit of strength she had to get her out because afterward, she just collapsed. The divorce was not finalized yet, so Rachel was legally protected. But Brandon's mom screamed that she would tell her parents everything. On the way home from the funeral, my wife and I talked about Rachel. We agreed that she should no longer be a part of our lives. My wife was the only one who knew Rachel's secret, but she did not reveal it to the rest of the family. She told me she was going to block her number, which seemed like a good idea, and we did not talk about it again after that. The fact that Rachel is attracted to women does not bother me, but betraying her husband for their entire marriage simply out of fear of coming out is unforgivable. I am sure if she had been honest with Brandon before they got married, or at the beginning of their relationship, he would have understood. But to live for years being used, thinking he had a wife who loved him as much as he loved her, is something that caused him to die of a broken heart. 2 weeks ago, I came home from work early. I had finished a project ahead of schedule, so there was no reason to stay all day. I got home at 3 in the afternoon instead of 6 in the afternoon. My wife's car was there, along with another one. I went inside and found my wife sitting on the couch with Rachel. Rachel was crying, and my wife had her arm around her shoulders. They were sitting right under the framed photo of Brandon that I had hung in the living room after the funeral. I asked my wife what Rachel was doing in our house. My wife stood up and told me Rachel had called her that morning to talk. I looked at her as if to remind her that this was not what we had agreed upon, but she replied that Rachel was going through a hard time and needed support. In front of Rachel, because frankly, I did not care at that moment, I asked my wife why she thought Rachel deserved any support. She started to answer, but I did not let her finish. I told her that Brandon had spent the last 3 months of his life completely broken because of what she had done to him. She had lied every single day for 8 years, using him as a cover to live the life she really wanted. So no, she had no right to be sad since she was the cause of all of it. Rachel left without saying a word. My wife followed her outside. I could hear them talking on the porch, but I could not make out their words. 10 minutes later, my wife came back in, very angry, saying I had been insensitive to Rachel. In my opinion, Rachel deserved far worse than what I had said. We argued for 2 hours. Instead of enjoying my time off, I spent it arguing. My wife said Rachel was going through an identity crisis and had made mistakes, but she was still a human being who deserved compassion. I said Rachel was a liar who had destroyed my best friend and deserved nothing from us. My wife thought I was being unfair and too harsh. I told her she was betraying Brandon's memory by comforting the person who had ruined his life. Then she said something that really made me angry, that Brandon would not have wanted us to hate Rachel like this. I told her she had no idea what Brandon would have wanted because he died thinking the woman he loved had never really existed. The arguments continued and became more and more heated. My wife started spending several nights a week at her sister's. I sometimes slept at my parents' house to avoid being at home. We stopped eating together. We stopped talking except to argue. Last week, my wife packed her bags, 2 large suitcases, and told me she needed space, that she could not go on like this anymore. I asked her if she was going to Rachel's. She did not answer. She just took her things and left. She has not come back. I called her twice the next day. No answer. I sent her a text asking when she was coming home. She replied 3 hours later that she needed time to think. I asked her what she needed to think about. She did not reply again. A friend saw my wife's car in front of Rachel's apartment building 4 days ago. Another saw them having coffee together yesterday morning. My wife has not answered any of my calls since she left. I do not know if or when she will come back. It hurts to think that a few months ago, I had a best friend and a wife, and now I have neither. I do not know what to think about my wife anymore. I feel like if her husband had cheated on one of her friends, she would find it unacceptable. But this was not just one instance of cheating, it was years. Rachel is a selfish person who only thought of herself. Instead of confronting her family, she chose to ruin Brandon's life. How much longer would this deception have lasted? Until her parents passed away. And for those who think there is something going on between my wife and Rachel, that they might be a couple, I think I have already mentioned it, but they are cousins. If it is already looked down upon that Rachel likes women, it would be even worse for the family if my wife were one too and they were together. And no, Rachel's parents were not at Brandon's funeral. I do not know if they are aware of the situation. I do not really have a relationship with them, and things with my in-laws are not much better either. Not because I do not want to, but because my wife has issues with them. Update 1. My wife finally called. She did not ask how I was doing and did not apologize for ignoring my messages. She just said she wanted to talk and that I needed to listen. Then she laid out her conditions for coming home. I had to apologize to Rachel, and it had to be sincere. I asked if she was serious. She was dead serious. To my wife, what I had said to Rachel was unforgivable and cruel. And until I fixed it, there was nothing for us to discuss. I asked her if she understood what Rachel had done to Brandon. She said she understood perfectly, but that it did not give me the right to be aggressive. I hung up on her. An hour later, she sent me a message saying that if I needed anything, I could communicate through her sister. I did not reply. It has been 3 weeks now. My wife has not contacted me since. Her sister came to the house last week to pick up some of my wife's clothes and personal belongings. Since she was the only person who could tell me what was going on, I asked her a few questions. Most of her answers were evasive, as if I were the enemy and my wife were the victim of my actions. Then I had to ask if she really knew what was happening. My sister-in-law said something along the lines of me being mean to a poor widow. That is when I had had enough and told her everything. I could see from her expression that she was surprised because she barely said anything. She finished gathering my wife's things and left. Brandon's mom called me last week. My wife had contacted her a few days earlier to check on her and had mentioned that we were having problems. She wanted to be there for me because she knew what I was going through, the loss of Brandon and now this. But during the call, my wife forgot to mention that this was all about Rachel. After I explained everything to her, she said she would wait for my wife to call her back to tell her a few things. We did not talk much about Brandon or Rachel. Afterward, we tried to talk about other things. I went to Brandon's grave yesterday. I stayed there for an hour, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. Brandon would have known what to do. It would have been nice to have him here now. But Brandon is gone, and I am here. While my wife is living with the woman who destroyed his life. I have consulted a lawyer. If my wife and I decide to divorce, the process would take at least 6 months in this state. It would be quicker if we agreed on the division of assets instead of going through mediation. I have not told my wife I have seen a lawyer, and I do not know if she has consulted one. I am just exploring my options, although I think the decision has already been made. It is just a matter of who makes the first move. Edit. Rachel did not get much of Brandon's belongings after his death. He had changed his will to leave his personal property to his parents. The house was not theirs, and it is possible she kept the joint accounts and a few other things since they were still married, and it was community property. Sorry, I do not have more details. Update 2. My ex-wife filed for divorce 3 months ago. Her lawyer sent the papers to my house. She cited irreconcilable differences, which was fine with me. We have differences, but those are not the deep reasons for our separation. The documents stated she wanted to split everything 50-50. Like me, she wanted the divorce to be over as quickly as possible. There was a section on the house, another on our savings account, another on furniture and personal property. I had my lawyer review the documents the same day in case there was anything I was not okay with. But when he confirmed everything was standard, I signed immediately. I put the documents back in the envelope and dropped them off at her lawyer's office. I did not even wait until the next day. I did it on my way out of my lawyer's office. We could have negotiated, wasted time on every detail, but I wanted it over with, and 50% seemed fair. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. This is what happens when two people agree that the best solution is to get divorced. We will split the proceeds from the sale of the house equally when it is sold. The savings and everything else have already been divided. She took her car and her personal belongings. I kept my truck and the rest. The whole thing took a little over 2 months from the filing to the judge signing the decree. I have not spoken directly to my ex-wife since the day she left. We communicate only through our lawyers. She did not even come to get her things. Her sister and a friend came one afternoon while I was at work and packed everything up. Now I have to find a place for myself and move out so the house can be turned over to the future buyer. There is not one yet, but I do not want to wait too long. My ex-wife is now living permanently with Rachel. I know this because their landlord was in high school with me. The picture of Brandon is still hanging on the wall, and it will go with me when it is my turn to leave. I see Brandon's parents at least once a week for dinner. They are doing much better compared to where they were at their son's funeral. They were already in therapy since their first child's death, so they have a support system. It is not any easier having gone through it before, but I think they are managing well. They are also encouraging me to go to therapy, and I am going to do that now. To answer what many of you have asked, sorry I have not provided more updates before now. When I lost both a friend and my marriage, my priorities were elsewhere. Now that things are better, I was able to talk with Brandon's mom and have some news. Rachel's entire family and my ex-wife's family now know what really happened. Last time, I had told Rachel's sister everything, but she apparently had not said anything after talking with her. I know this because about a month and a half ago, while talking with Brandon's mom, she told me she had completely forgotten and was going to call. A week later, when we met again for dinner, she told me what had happened. Rachel's parents knew nothing. They only knew that Rachel and Brandon were going through a marital crisis, but hoped they would work things out. They had even suggested that Rachel talk to someone from the church who deals with these kinds of situations. After Brandon's death, Rachel told them not to come to the funeral, claiming that relations with her husband's parents were strained. According to her version, Brandon's parents did not want to see her because they blamed her for the accident, which is partly true, but not for the reasons she gave them. To say they were angry is an understatement, but the most surprising thing is that they were not angry at her for being attracted to women. Yes, that surprised me too. I will get to that in a moment because I also had a conversation with my in-laws. The anger of Brandon's parents was about the fact that she had cheated on him for years. The impression Brandon's mom got from their conversation was that their anger stemmed from that, and it was clear that Rachel's sister had said nothing. That was all we knew from Rachel's parents' side until my in-laws called me. They found out what was happening with Rachel, but also what was happening with me. It was thanks to Brandon's mom, who told Rachel's parents everything. My ex-wife had told them that I was part of the group that hated Rachel for what happened with Brandon, but without them knowing the whole truth. These people, whom my ex-wife had always described as villains, were actually some of the kindest people you could imagine. They were shocked by Rachel, by their own daughter, and by the whole situation. They promised me they would talk to her, and I thought that would be the end of it, but they called me back. In short, they disowned my ex-wife. I do not know exactly what was said during that conversation, but they apologized to me and invited me to dinner. Someone must have told them I had lost weight because between Brandon's parents and my in-laws, I feel like they are trying to fatten me up. In any case, Brandon's mom cooks all my favorite things, which are not exactly light. I also accepted the invitation from my in-laws, or rather, ex-in-laws, although it feels strange to call them that, and it is curious how well I get along with them now that my marriage is over. That says a lot. Finally, what makes me hate Rachel even more is what she told Brandon. She told him her parents would reject her if she came out. Yet, that is not at all the impression her parents gave, nor the one my in-laws gave me. Maybe Rachel genuinely believed it, given their religious background, but that does not make things any less serious. She destroyed Brandon's life based on an assumption. The other possibility is that she lied to him, and honestly, that is the one that seems most likely to me. She lied for years, so why stop there? So that is the summary of what has happened. Edit. Yes, Rachel was also disowned by her parents. I am not necessarily talking about money, but about the fact that they no longer want to speak to her. Though honestly, they probably will not give her any more money either, but I do not really know if they have much or not. Update 3. I saw my ex-wife last week. I was filling up my tank at a gas station on the highway when she pulled up to the pump across from me. She did not see me at first. She got out of her car and started pumping gas. Then she looked up, and our eyes met. She had changed. Her hair was shorter. She was wearing clothes I had never seen on her. She looked at me for a few seconds, then looked away to focus on the pump. I finished filling up and went to pay. When I came back out, her car was gone. I have been thinking about that moment every day since. I know with this description, some will again fuel the theory that she became attracted to women or already was, and is with Rachel. I am just giving you the facts. You can draw your own conclusions. By the way, I got some other information about her. I had dinner with my in-laws, whom I refused to call ex. Everything went well, but we did not talk much about their daughter or Rachel. I wish I had had this relationship with them before, when I was still married. Brandon's mom invited me to dinner for Thanksgiving last month. I accepted, but only if I could bring something. She always refuses, even a bottle of wine. She finally agreed because I insisted, except I panicked because I did not know how to cook something for Thanksgiving. In the end, I bought a pecan pie from the gas station. It tasted weird. Nobody ate it except me, but I was happy with my pie. Note for next year, learn to cook. Though honestly, it will probably be worse than this year. There were a lot of people there, Brandon's family, and I felt at home. I was also invited for Christmas, but I had to spend time with my parents. At least I helped bring them mashed potatoes to the table. That kind of makes up for the questionable pie. It did not make me sick, but my stomach is used to my old eating habits with Brandon. I have moved and hung up some pictures of me with Brandon where I can see them. At first, it hurt to remember him, but now I associate those pictures with good memories. My therapist is helping me a lot with that. Last month, I ran into a friend of my ex-wife's at the supermarket. Well, friend is not quite right. She asked how I was doing and told me a few things. My ex-wife was already cheating on me, at least 2 or 3 months before the whole story with Brandon blew up. And for those who thought she was also attracted to women, sorry to disappoint you, no. She is dating a man, the same one she was cheating on me with. Fortunately, it does not change anything about the divorce. She did not ask for alimony, and the assets would have been divided the same way. The only thing that maybe bothers me is that she might have planned the whole thing, the scene with Rachel at our house, to give herself an excuse to divorce me. I try not to think about it too much because it does not change anything now, but it is hard not to feel angry if it is true. Rachel is also dating someone, according to what my in-laws told me. They do not know much because few family members are still in contact with her. An interesting detail in the family, someone else came out, a cousin of my ex-wife and Rachel, encouraged after everything that happened, and he was accepted. I do not know if I will have anything else to report, but that is where I am. Today, I am doing better. Therapy is working, and the people around me are supportive. I have not talked much about my parents in this story, but they have helped me enormously, as have my in-laws and Brandon's parents. Sometimes, I feel like Brandon lives on through his parents. I told them that, and it touched them. His dad is like a friend I can talk to about guy stuff. Yesterday's game, cars. And his mom has that ability to listen that he had too. There are even some small improvements, like the meals, because Brandon was as bad a cook as I am. But yes, today, I am grateful to be doing better, surrounded by kind and sincere people. Update 4. In the 2 years since my last update, I have hesitated to post again. On one hand, I enjoy writing, but I did not have anything truly relevant to share and thought you would not want me to just talk about my life. Until recently, when I learned some things through my ex's family. I am still in touch with my in-laws, as well as Brandon's parents. That has not changed. But now I have answers to questions I could never answer before. For example, why did Brandon never find out Rachel liked women? I mean, why did he never notice she was not attracted to him? They must have had a difficult time in that part of their marriage, and yet he never mentioned it to me. The answer is that Rachel is bisexual, and her family knows because she was involved with my ex's boyfriend for about 6 months. My ex went back to her parents' house in tears, looking for comfort, but she found a closed door. Rachel did not find any comfort either, and I think she lost the few friends she had left. She had friends who were attracted to men and others who were attracted to women. And now everyone knows she is capable of getting involved with the partners of her loved ones. If she could do that to her own cousin who supported her, what is left for anyone else? I do not know much about the fight between my ex and Rachel because her parents do not speak to her anymore. As for her friends, I know about it because we have a common social circle. So there you have it, not much more to tell, but at least it allowed me to get this urge to update out of my system. And well, for the first Thanksgiving, I tried to make a pie, but it was such a disaster that I did not even dare bring it to Brandon's parents' house. However, last year I improved. Okay, I have to admit it is mostly because I was dating someone who helped me prepare it. It was more of a 20-80 effort, 20% me, 80% my girlfriend. I had to confess during the meal because everyone was complimenting me on my progress in the kitchen, but I had to give her all the credit. And two, Brandon's parents and my in-laws know her, and they like her. Mostly because it keeps me from bringing pies from the gas station or cooking something that even dogs would refuse to eat. Comment: I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this story with me. It reminded me how important it is to protect our self-respect in any relationship. Setting clear boundaries is not harsh. It is simply caring for your peace of mind. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is walk away from situations that keep hurting us. Healing takes time, and it is okay to lean on the right people who truly support you. I hope this makes you reflect on the relationships in your life and choose people who value you as much as you value them. Remember that you deserve honesty and real loyalty. Choosing your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. Take care of yourself out there. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.